King Jaehaerys I, or Jaehaerys the Conciliator, is widely regarded as one of the best kings in the history of Westeros. When his grandson Viserys succeeds him in House of the Dragon, he inherits a thriving, prosperous realm forged by Old King Jaehaerys. But that took years and years to obtain. When Jaehaerys was young, the realm was in turmoil, and his wise leadership and bold actions saved the kingdom his grandfather Aegon the Conqueror had forged. This is the story of King Jaehaerys I and his tumultuous life and reign. Jaehaerys was born the fourth child of King Aenys I and Queen Alysanne in 34 AC, in the final years of Aegon the Conqueror's reign. In 41 AC, Aenys I decided to marry his eldest children to each other, Rhaena and Aegon. This sparked a years-long conflict with the Faith of the Seven. The Faith reviled incest and called the marriage an abomination. They excused Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys, but were not willing to do the same for Aenys' children. Jaehaerys' father was not a strong or bold king like the Conqueror, or even his brother Maegor. King Aenys was indecisive, and his aunt Visenya the Conqueror gave him two options. He could either break the betrothal and find a new match for Rhaena and Aegon, or he could mount his dragon Quicksilver and burn the starry sept down atop the High Septon's pious head. The latter is what the Conquerors would have done. Instead, Aenys waited and grew weaker and more anxious, until he died bedridden at the age of 35. Upon his father's death, Jaehaerys and Alysanne were taken to Driftmark by their mother, Queen Dowager Alysanne, while Queen Dowager Visenya the Conqueror brought her son Maegor the Cruel back from Pentos. Maegor seized his dead brother's throne for himself, when by rights it should have passed to Aegon, who was trapped in the west on his royal progress with his sister Rhaena. Maegor's reign was deadly, bloody, and dark. In 44 AC, Maegor's mother Visenya died on Dragonstone. So amidst the chaos, Alysanne took her kids Jaehaerys and Alysanne, and the Valyrian steel sword Dark Sister, and fled to Storm's End under the protection of Lord Rhaegar Baratheon. With Jaehaerys' older brother, Aegon the Uncrowned, dead at the hands of their uncle Maegor, and Aegon's widow Rhaena becoming one of Maegor's Black Brides, in 48 AC, Lord Rhaegar Baratheon boldly proclaimed Jaehaerys as the rightful ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, taking a stand against Maegor the Cruel. The realm had begun to despise Maegor, so the great lords of Lannister, Arryn, Tyrell, and Tully all joined Baratheon in support of Jaehaerys, the eldest living son of King Aenys. When news of Jaehaerys' claim reached his sister Rhaena, she fled King's Landing on her dragon Dreamfire, taking the Targaryen ancestral Valyrian steel sword Blackfire with her to Storm's End. Jaehaerys had 2 Valyrian steel swords, 3 dragons, 2 knights of the Kingsguard, and most of the great lords of the realm against his uncle Maegor. However, in 48 AC, Maegor was found dead on the Iron Throne, impaled by the blades comprising the chair. Jaehaerys landed in King's Landing on his dragon Vermithor ahead of his army at the age of 14, and he began his rule. Jaehaerys I ruled for 55 years, from 48 AC to 103 AC. In Westeros, you aren't considered a man grown until the age of 16, so Jaehaerys' mother, Dowager Queen Alysanne, and Jaehaerys' hand of the king, Rhaegar Baratheon, ruled as his regents. Jaehaerys, however, was involved in all matters of state. His journey as king would be difficult, as his predecessors Maegor and Aenys had undone much of the work of the conquerors. Jaehaerys would eventually become known as the Conciliator for his ability to compromise and solve problems, unifying the realm where it was split. Though it was Aegon and his sisters who forged the Seven Kingdoms, it was Jaehaerys the Conciliator who truly made them one. Jaehaerys' first task as king was to decide what was to be done with the lords who supported Maegor the Cruel until the very end. Lords Rosby, Towers, Massey, and several others of the Crown Lands stuck with Maegor until Jaehaerys and his sisters, Rhaena and Alysanne, arrived at the Red Keep on their dragons. 5 of 7 Kingsguard remained with Maegor as well, but 2 fled to join Jaehaerys. Dowager Queen Alyssa urged for the deaths of all of them, as those lords and knights stood by while Maegor slew 2 of her sons. Hand of the King Rhaegar Baratheon instead urged for each of the imprisoned lords to be given a trial. The worst of them should be put to death, but most of them should simply be forced to tender hostages and forfeit some of their property. Jaehaerys did not let his hand or mother decide for him, however. He climbed the Iron Throne and said, "There will be no trials, no torture, and no executions. The realm must see that I am not my uncle. I shall not begin my reign by bathing in blood. Some came to my banners early, some late. Let the rest come now." Jaehaerys personally sat before each captive as they did him homage, and took hostages and lands to punish them justly. Jaehaerys was not weak like his father, though, and could stand a little blood. Maegor's headsmen, gaolers, and confessors, who were all guilty of allowing Jaehaerys' older brother Viserys to be tortured, were all beheaded, their heads and hands delivered to his mother, Queen Alysanne. Next were the 5 Kingsguard, 2 of whom went to Jaehaerys' side while Maegor still lived. Jaehaerys wanted no oathbreakers amongst his sworn swords, so he sentenced all 5 of them to death, unless they would trade their white cloaks for the black cloaks of the Night's Watch. 4 agreed, but one, Sir Harold Langward, demanded trial by combat. Jaehaerys wanted to duel him personally, but was overruled, so Sir Giles Morrigan fought and won in his stead. Sir Giles was then named the first member of Jaehaerys' own Kingsguard. At the time of Jaehaerys' coronation, the rift between the faith and the crown was not entirely healed. Maegor waged war against the poor fellows and warriors' sons for years, and Septon Moon still had thousands of supporters with him against the Targaryens. Luckily, his throat was cut by a female visitor to his tent, and Jaehaerys could travel safely to the Starry Sept to be anointed by the High Septon. Sir Joffrey Doggett, one of the fiercest fighters on the side of the faith, asked Jaehaerys to rearm the faith militant, but Jaehaerys firmly refused, saying, "The faith has no need of swords. They have my protection, the protection of the Iron Throne." So Jaehaerys tells Sir Joffrey, "The warrior sons are no more, but I have a place for you." The king offered his foe a place on his Kingsguard, to the shock of all those in attendance, and Sir Joffrey Doggett bent a knee, laid his sword at Jaehaerys' feet, and swore his loyalty with a tear in his eye. That's the kind of ruler Jaehaerys was. Queen Regent Alyssa and Hand of the King Rogar then married each other without asking Jaehaerys' permission, and soon began discussing marriage matches for Jaehaerys and his sister Alysanne. Jaehaerys was wroth at the disrespect, and when word reached Alysanne of their mother's connivance, she immediately went to her brother. Defiantly, Jaehaerys and Alysanne flew to Dragonstone one night, and the Dragonstone Septon married them. Queen Alyssa was so against their marriage because she remembered how the devout reviled and antagonized her children, Aegon and Rhaena, who married each other. Another incestual marriage, though common amongst Valyrians, would no doubt upset the faith once more. Jaehaerys and Alysanne stayed married though, and spent some of the happiest years of their lives together in the peace and quiet of Dragonstone. The newlyweds took classes together from the maesters, read to each other from old books, and Jaehaerys was determined to become a warrior, and he didn't want to be seen as weak like his father Aenys was. After Jaehaerys took full control of the crown in 50 AC, and wed Alysanne again in a modest public ceremony, he created the doctrine of exceptionalism. This crafty doctrine stated that the faith of the Seven was created in Andalos and brought to Westeros during the Andal invasion. The Targaryens, however, are descended from Valyria, and their race was unlike the Andals or the First Men, as proven by their exotic hair and eye color, as well as their dragon riding ability. Jaehaerys sent out 7 speakers to proclaim this doctrine across the realm, allowing for the continuation of Targaryen incestuous marriages. With this move, Jaehaerys ensured not only the safety of his own marriage, but for Targaryen marriages to come long after his death. It was often said of Aegon the Conqueror that he spent more of his time on royal progresses of the realm than actually sitting on the Iron Throne. He believed that showing his face in each castle in his domain would in turn make him respected by his subjects. So Jaehaerys and Alysanne made their first of many royal progresses in 51 AC. Jaehaerys made another smart move in 54 AC when the High Septon died. Worried that Septon Matthias, a zealot firmly against incestuous marriage, would be appointed, Jaehaerys flew to Oldtown on Vermithor and bartered with Lord Hightower to make Septon Alfin the new holy leader, who supported the doctrine of exceptionalism. King Jaehaerys was perhaps most notable for the laws he and Alysanne created. In 55 AC, he and Alysanne created a series of reforms to codify and organize the laws of the 7 kingdoms, one set of laws for one kingdom of Westeros. That same year, Alysanne gave birth to their first son and heir, Aemon. A second son, Balon, would be born 2 years later. In 58 AC, another progress was planned, this time to Winterfell. However, Pentos and Tyrosh were engulfed in a trade war and asked Jaehaerys to mediate. Alysanne flew ahead to the north without Jaehaerys, on her dragon Silverwing, and held court in White Harbor and befriended Alara Stark. She also visited a village later named Queen's Crown, the same place Bran Stark hides as Jon Snow flees the wildlings centuries later. When Alysanne tried to fly a Silverwing beyond the wall, the dragon kept turning back south, seemingly afraid of or repelled by something way up north. This makes me curious to see if Daenerys will try to fly Drogon north of the wall, and if he will be comfortable where Silverwing was not. Later that year, Alysanne convinced Jaehaerys to pass the second of Queen Alysanne's laws. The first was the widow's law, enforcing heirs to provide their predecessors' widows with the same level of comfort they experienced while their husband lived. The second of Alysanne's laws was the abolition of the first night, an ancient practice whereby lords could claim any bride's maidenhead the night of her wedding, before her husband could consummate the marriage. In 61 AC, at the age of 27, King Jaehaerys and Rhaegar Baratheon teamed up once more in the Third Dornish War, dispelling the Vulture King for good, like his father Aenys was never able to. The 60s and 70s were peaceful and prosperous under King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne. The couple gave birth to 13 children, the last of whom was born in 80 AC, though only 9 lived to adulthood, and only one son would outlive his father. Vagon was a maester, though. In 62 AC, Jaehaerys began his largest public works initiative, a massive road network connecting all the kingdoms of Westeros. There were some ancient, ragged roads, though unconnected and often filled with thieves. Jaehaerys was determined to give his people a safe means of travel, and also to turn King's Landing into a city worthy of a king, on the scale of Old Town or Lannisport or the Free Cities like Pentos or Myr. The first portion of the road was the King's Road, from King's Landing south to Storm's End and north all the way to the Wall. This is the road King Robert traveled when visiting Ned Stark. Other roads were the Ocean Road, Gold Road, River Road, and Rose Road. The same year, he named his 7-year-old son and heir, Aemon, the Prince of Dragonstone. Aemon and Balon were only 2 years apart, and close friends the way Aenys and Maegor never were. In 68 AC, Jaehaerys and Alysanne began matchmaking for their children. The heir to the throne, Aemon, was betrothed to Lady Jocelyn Baratheon, Jaehaerys and Alysanne's own half-sister by their mother Alyssa Velaryon and Rhaegar Baratheon. Queen Alysanne insisted that their children Balon and Alyssa be saved for each other, as Alyssa was constantly attached to Balon in their youth. The decades of the Long Reign were filled with marriages and feasts and tourneys. In 80 AC, Jaehaerys named his oldest son Aemon Hand of the King at age 25, and 3 years later, Jaehaerys, Aemon, and Balon took to the sky with their 3 dragons, Vermithor, Caraxes, and Vhagar, to cast down Prince Morgan Martell's invasion of the Stormlands. The war was over within a single day, and the crown did not lose a single man in the fighting. They returned to King's Landing heroes, and many consider this the absolute height of Jaehaerys' reign. While the realm would be stable and happy into the 80s and 90s AC, the same cannot be said for Jaehaerys and Alysanne's marriage. The first quarrel was in 81 AC, when Jaehaerys demanded his 16-year-old daughter Daella be married. A match was made with Lord Roderick Arryn, but Daella died after giving birth to a healthy daughter, Aemma Arryn, who would later wed Viserys Targaryen. Alysanne was angry at Jaehaerys for pushing their daughter into marriage too soon. In 84 AC, their other daughter Sarah was acting too wild and slept with 3 men before she was married. Jaehaerys was ashamed and sent Sarah to Old Town to become a septa, but she fled to Lys and became a prostitute. Alysanne was devastated, saying that the Lyseni turned their daughter into a whore. Jaehaerys replied, "She always was," and never contacted Sarah again. Jaehaerys was now 50 years old and grew thinner and grayer after the situation with Sarah. In 87 AC, the king and queen would lose their 3rd daughter in 5 years, as Visera Targaryen snapped her neck falling from a horse while partying. This led to what is known as the first estrangement of Jaehaerys and Alysanne, lasting about 3 years from 87 to 89 AC. King Jaehaerys was planning another royal progress of the realm, but good Queen Alysanne stayed behind on Dragonstone to grieve for their daughters. Jaehaerys clearly needed time away from the Red Keep, and extended his progress despite requests from his sons Aemon and Balon to return home. Things finally got better in 90 AC, when their first grandchild was about to marry. Aemon's daughter Rhaenys married Lord Corlys Velaryon, one of the last happy days when the Targaryen family were all together. The second estrangement would come in 92 AC, after heir to the throne Aemon Targaryen was killed. Aemon was 37, and went to Tarth with Lord Velaryon's fleet to rid the Isle of Myrish pirates. His daughter Rhaenys had just become pregnant, or else she would have joined her father on her dragon Meleys. Aemon's last words to his daughter were, "You have your own battle to fight. Lord Corlys will want a son, I am sure, and I would like a grandson." Aemon's brother Balon avenged him, however, returning from Tarth with his corpse after killing them all with Stark's sister. The streets of King's Landing hailed him Balon the Brave, but when he arrived at the Red Keep, he cried into his mother Alysanne's arms, saying, "I slew 1,000 of them, but it will not bring him back." The tragic death of Aemon caused another rift between King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne, when Jaehaerys named his second son Balon the Brave the new heir and Prince of Dragonstone, instead of Aemon's daughter Rhaenys, as well as the baby boy in her belly. Alysanne was furious, and left again for Dragonstone, telling her husband, A ruler needs a good head and a true heart. A cock is not essential. If your grace truly believes that women lack the wit to rule, you plainly have no further need of me." The queen was gone another 2 years in the second estrangement, and only reconciled with the help of their daughter, Maegor. Alysanne's heart would break once more, however, after their daughter Gael committed suicide in the Blackwater in 99 AC. Alysanne spent her final days on Dragonstone, and died in 100 AC. Old King Jaehaerys would outlive his wife for a few more years. In 101 AC, though, his second son and heir, Balon, died of what was likely a burst appendix, which the maesters could not heal. Jaehaerys was distraught, and by this time he had neither his wife Alysanne nor his trusted advisor Septon Barth to help him. He called for his other son Archmaester Vagon for advice. Vagon was always cold and distant, but mature. Vagon advised his father to call a great council to decide the new heir, but some say Jaehaerys offered the title directly to Vagon, who refused on the account of his vows to the Citadel. Jaehaerys did not attend the great council, but all the powerful lords and ladies gathered at Harrenhal to decide the new heir. Their decision came down to Rhaenys once again, or her son Laenor Velaryon, and Viserys, Balon's oldest son. On the basis of male primogeniture, the council elected Viserys, as he was the eldest son of the heir. Rhaenys was once again passed over on account of her gender, and her son Laenor was neglected as well. The final years of Old King Jaehaerys' life were uneventful. He named Sir Otto Hightower the new hand of the king, while his daughter Alysanne Hightower cared for the king in his old age. Jaehaerys confused Alysanne at times for his estranged daughter Sarah, thinking she came back from Essos to be with him. It's clear that family was always important to Jaehaerys, right up until the end. The king died in his bed in 103 AC, and was succeeded by his grandson Viserys. Jaehaerys ruled the Seven Kingdoms for 55 years, and oversaw an unprecedented age of peace and prosperity, which would be inherited by Viserys, and undisturbed until the Dance of the Dragon Civil War, 26 years after the death of the Old King. Jaehaerys and Alysanne will no doubt be referenced throughout Season 1 of House of the Dragon. It's also been confirmed that the prologue scene of the series will indeed be the Great Council, where Viserys was named the heir. While Jaehaerys was not present at the council in the books, the show might change that, and show us the Old King to establish the realm that Viserys would inherit. Jaehaerys' greatest impact on the show will be the precedent he set on males coming before females in the line of succession. Jaehaerys had an older sister, Rhaena, but he was given the throne. Jaehaerys' oldest son had a daughter, but he gave the status of heir to his second son Balon instead. And when Balon died, his son Viserys would become king over his older cousin Rhaenys. Years later, the Dance of the Dragons would break out when Rhaenyra Targaryen, a female, was made heir to the Iron Throne over her younger half-brother Aegon. Jaehaerys made a lot of laws throughout his rule, but overlooked the custom of male primogeniture as just that, a custom. If he made that custom into law, or even better, created a new law saying that a ruler could choose their heir, then the Civil War may never have happened. King Jaehaerys was one of the finest kings in Westeros' history, though he was not without his flaws. He took over the realm after his uncle Maegor the Cruel nearly destroyed it. Through caution, compromise, and wise thinking, Jaehaerys and his Queen Alysanne were able to unify the Seven Kingdoms once more, and establish an age of prosperity and peace. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on Jaehaerys and Alysanne, as well as other topics you'd like to hear me discuss. Thanks for watching.